Committee meeting to order. Ms. Kathy, roll call, please.
Yes, sir. Vice Chairman Abshire.
Here.
Mr. Angelbon.
Here.
Mr. Barris. Mr. Brame.
Here.
Mr. Stelly.
Here.
President Landry. And Chairman Barty.
Here.
You do have a quorum.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
We will, this meeting today is to receive requests for grant funding from the gaming fund, but also to go over the administrative presentation for our fiscal year budget for 2024. So we're going to change the order a bit, and we will start with 2A, administrative presentation of the parish proposed fiscal year 2024 budget. Mr. Bean.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. It's my pleasure tonight to present the proposed budget to you and ultimately the police jury for 2024. Before I get into the slides, I do want to take a moment at the outset to thank a few folks. The budget process actually starts every year about August, if you can believe it. It's that big a project. Our finance director, Kelly Fontenot, is on top of things from the beginning, and she does an excellent job. As does her right hand in this effort, Judy Hewlett, who manages all the details, and she does that with great skill. I also want to thank Kyle Judice, the Assistant Director in Finance. And from administration, Dane Boland, Jessica Booth, Alberto Galan, and Jeff Vander for their contributions. Also, department directors and their staff working on budgetary responsibilities do an excellent job. They recognize we've got limits in funding to provide a lot of demand for services, and they handle that well. Lastly, I want to thank J.P. Booth and Brandon Myers in Communications and Media for their help with today's presentation. You'll see some of their handiwork today and some of the photographs and other imagery that will help communicate our proposed budget to you. So with that, Mr. Chairman, if it's okay, I'll go ahead and get started with the slides. And turn something off, I guess. I don't know. There we go. Thank you. This is the standard outline we use. I like to cover the economic environment a little bit because the economy dictates a lot of the resources you can use in delivering services you're responsible for. We'll then go and do the numbers for 2024, and I always like to end with a little bit of a look ahead that's bigger picture, getting out of the day-to-day stuff in terms of where we are looking ahead in the future. So what are the economic trends we're seeing? I think they're very positive. As it is most years, the industrial sector has been strong in 2023. Commonly, we talk about petrochemical and refining, includes some other things as well, but a lot of your funding, especially your sales taxes, is because of the industrial sector here in Calcasieu, and it's been a good year. They've had a strong recovery, frankly, since the pandemic and the hurricanes, but positive results this year. Our gaming sector has rebounded also to pre-COVID levels. It's steady, it's not skyrocketing, but although your budget only is made up of gaming funds that equate to about 3%, it's a substantial amount, and it allows you to pay for a lot of the capital projects that I'll go through later. We've had really good returns on sales tax revenues and property tax in 2023 as well. Those are your two core revenue sources. And then a lot of recovery funds that are federal are beginning to flow through the local economy, be even more so in 2024, big enough to where they actually have positive impacts because of the nature of what they're spent on. So I believe that the news is good as we continue our recovery and we look beyond recovery as well. So with that in mind, let's start going through the budget as proposed. I'll give you an overall comparison of this year's budget to what we propose, break it down into revenues in those categories of expenditures shown on the slide. This is your big picture comparison using what they call stacked bar chart. The bar on the left is your current year's budget, which is $427.1 million. Our proposed budget for 2024 is $356.9 million, which is a decrease approximately $70 million. And as you can see, It's down substantially, and if you look at the red color, which is disaster recovery, it's the decrease in expenditures in that category making that outcome is really the reason for that. But I'll cover each of those changes. This is the same information, but in tabular form. So you have the same categories listed on the graph. I'll let you kind of go through those. The left column of numbers is the 2023 budget, your current budget, and you can see what makes up the $427 million. And then 2024 is proposed, the difference, and then the percent difference. Point out at the bottom, you'll see that total comes to a $70.2 million decrease or 16.4% decrease. And that can, again, be attributable to this category right here. It's a very simple explanation. We've made a lot of progress, and I'm going to cover that later. Hurricane recovery has been a very expensive endeavor, and we are not finished, but we're well along the way. Let's get into the revenue side first, break that down. So the pie chart you see in normal years, which I don't know, I guess anything pre-2020 I would call normal, you would see ad valorem taxes, which is on the bottom left, your kind of orange slide. That's property taxes. And sales tax be your two biggest categories. They are definitely important and definitely a critical source, but you'll notice at the top right and left, the two biggest categories are intergovernmental revenues and prior year fund balance. Let me just cover those briefly. Intergovernmental revenues is primarily federal revenues. Prior to the hurricanes and pandemic, that was largely cost you have for a lot of your human services programs, including workforce development, that flow from the federal government, various agencies, down through states and parishes to provide a lot of needed funds in some of your departments. You add on to that the hurricane recovery dollars, which also come from federal government in various categories, and both of those combined is why that's such a big category in 2024. It normally wouldn't be that big. Prior year fund balance is, if you think of that using money from savings in the current year, that's in essence what this is. This is not bad news, though. It's good, because that means a lot of the money we save over the years, primarily for capital projects, which are investments in the future, you put them aside for when you need them on the big things, and that makes up a big category. But that means that's money we have, and it's not endangering in any way the fund balances we need that are good, just financial fiscal practices. So it's a good news story. And again, sales tax, property tax, your other big two. I'm not going to hit on every category. I'm going to hit on a few on the revenue side. So let's look at sales taxes. The reminder, you have two sales taxes. You have a 1 cent tax and a 1.5 cent. The 1 cent tax is what I'm showing here. I don't show both because they have the same trends. The 1 cent tax is levied in all unincorporated areas. And by the way, that's the one on your ballot, on everybody's ballot in unincorporated areas this Saturday for renewal. So we need that badly. It goes toward a lot of your public works operations, parks, many other things we need, just very important services. But anyway, this is the revenue from that tax. And you can see, going back to, I picked 2020 forward because that's kind of the era we're in, post-pandemic, post-hurricane. And you can see the trend is good. It's steady. It's not going up and down, but you'll notice our budget this year is $25.8 million for that 1 cent tax. We expect $31.6 million. That's a great outcome. Frankly, it's higher than we thought. I don't mind missing that when we get more than we thought. If it's less, then we missed the boat. That doesn't mean, though, we're going to get that in 2024. It's a hard thing to predict. It really is, sales taxes. Remember, this isn't parish-wide. It doesn't count sales taxes in cities, which is a lot of commercial type business. This is strictly outside, so the bulk of that is going to come from the industrial sector and some smaller businesses in unincorporated areas. We are budgeting a 3% increase compared to this year's budget for 2024, up to $26.5 million. Again, that's just the 1 cent tax, same increase on the other. We feel comfortable we can make that. Could it be higher? Yeah, it could be lower. We don't have any known LNG projects starting next year. If some of those do come to a final investment decision, that of course would probably more in 2025 ratchet things up. But we feel safe saying we think it's going to go up 3% next year. Let's talk about property taxes. This isn't the property tax revenue chart. It is tax valuations, meaning what people call the tax base. So basically you add all the values of properties up in Calcasieu, residential, commercial, utility, industrial, and that's the tax base. So it's about $2.8 billion this year. We are expecting that to go up a little bit in 2024. That information comes from the tax assessor. And then you apply the tax rates you have from your various taxes, and that's how you get the tax bill that produce the revenues. Our budget, as proposed in property taxes for all of our property taxes, is a 3% increase from this year's budget. Again, that's not what's showing here. That shows 0.28%, but that's valuations. Our revenues, we think, will go up 3%. Chance that could be higher. This year, it's very tight. We think we can make budget, but it's very close. I really want to applaud Kelly and her team for good forecasting on that this year. We feel like a slight increase next year is in order. This is the hardest slide for me to cover tonight because I'm going to tell you something that doesn't probably match with what you're seeing. These are gaming revenues from all public agencies, meaning you add up all the gaming, however you want to refer to it, head tax, that are paid to public agencies, parish, city, so forth. That's what it comes to. Well, you can see the big dip in 2020 and 2021 due to the pandemic and the hurricanes, been going up. Anticipated 2023 this year, and then compared to 2024 projected, you see it's down by $5 million. It's very important to understand that what that shows is simply a factor of the timing of the payments from gaming gaming entities to the parish and the cities. Each one's a contract. It's different. Some of the money comes after the year's over. Let me just say the bottom line is the gaming sector is healthy here. If you look at the casinos, including Horseshoe, that's been open almost a year now, the revenues they've had are steady, climbing a little. When they came on board, Horseshoe, over the years, some of the money from the other two main casinos in Lake Charles take a little bit of a dip, not substantial, but as taken as a whole and including Delta Downs, we feel comfortable that's pretty steady. And of course, the way you budget gaming dollars and a policy you have, we don't count on any spending from gaming in the next year from that year. So we know already what the budget is based on previously received revenue. So this is just informational, but I guess I'd sum it up by saying don't think it's bad, even though it looks like it's going down. Probably shouldn't have even included that slide because it's hard to understand. Oh, let me mention one other thing. It's not a significant amount of money in the big picture, but just actually earlier this week, the Gaming Revenue District met, and President Landry represents the police jury on that, and the purpose was to formally request an amendment from the police jury in the city of Lake Charles, City Council, to approve an amendment to your gaming pool for sports wagering. That, of course, is new. In 2023, I think for the parish as a whole, we expect between $150,000, $200,000. It might be more in a given year, less, but it's new and it's going to be allocated just like all the other dollars in your gaming revenues. Small, but it's more, so that's good. That's a good thing. Before I get to expenditures, I kind of went quickly through the revenue sources. There's a few others, but are there any questions in general about the revenue side?
Brian, on the valuation, I think you said what was 2.8 billion?
Yes, sir.
Oh, how does Calcasieu Parish relate to, do we know, compared to other parishes in the state?
Well, we compete very well in terms of that with who you might expect. The metro areas, Lafayette, I think, is similar. Lafayette Parish. Keep in mind, this is parish and all the cities in it.
Right.
Theirs would be more commercial oriented because the city of Lafayette takes up a bigger area of their economy as for the whole parish. Here, it's different. You got a strong commercial sector in, say, Lake Charles and Sulphur, whereas the industrial is outside, but overall, very well. Baton Rouge and Caddo Parish, Orleans are big, a little bigger than us, but I can tell you that in the last 10 years, our tax base, that 2.8 billion, it's gone up about 70%. Here's why that's great news. Every time that goes up, that allows you to keep your tax rates low for the taxpayer. Otherwise, you got to roll up the taxes, is what they call it, to make up for the differences. You don't have to do that. So it's a good news story, Mr. Andrepon. I appreciate you asking that. But we compare very favorably.
I just think it's good for the quality of life that we have for our citizens, for the tax base that we have, and to your point, keeping the millages down for the things that we do, the services that we provide
Yes,
throughout the parish.
Thank you. Any other questions on the revenue? Let's look at the expenditures we expect next year, $356.9 million. This graph probably looks similar most years. Your biggest department is Public Works and everything that entails. That includes new road and bridge construction, road overlays, bridge repairs, things that fit under drainage and solid waste, anything like that. It's easily the biggest category of your services, but we have many others. I'll let you kind of look through those, but I don't think this graph in percentage terms is a whole lot different than previous ones. Disaster recovery, of course, is different. Now, it's lower than last year, but it's still bigger than when you don't recover from a hurricane. So hopefully that goes down a lot in the next couple of years. Let's look at a few pieces of that. So let me switch gears. So operations, which means operations for the whole police jury. Let's cover that part of the budget. Just a reminder from that slide earlier, this category of spending is budgeted as proposed at an increase of $6.1 million, which is 6.3%. Now, what makes that up? Two primary factors, both related to your workforce. One, wage adjustments for employees and position count. Let me talk about wage adjustments. It is so critical. We all know this, but I need to keep repeating it. Labor market is extremely tight here. Most of the country it is. But the pandemic plus the hurricanes has really made it harder. Housing's still a challenge. So recruiting and retaining workers is tough. I cannot say enough how much your leadership on the police jury has made a difference in the last couple of years, and we're asking for, in the proposed budget, a higher than past normal amount because we've got to stay competitive. And let me tell you why it's making a difference. At this time last year, out of about 700 or so positions at the parish, we had 122 vacant. Very high number. As we speak, we have about 84 vacant. So we've reduced our vacant positions by over 30%. It's not the only reason, but it is a big reason because the police jury has approved successive pay adjustments for our workforce, which that's what makes the police jury excellent, and I know y'all know that as your workforce. We can continue that, and we need to if we're going to fill positions to fulfill your mission and goals you have for us. But that's what makes up the difference, plus position count. The position count from 23 to 24 is a 14 additional number of positions, but again, let me explain what that comes from. 10 of those are from a water district we're in the transition of taking over early in 24. So they would come into the fold, but we're not adding in current departments. It's because we're taking on another entity as part of our overall waterworks bigger plan for the parish. There's also 3 positions out at the correctional center for nurses, which were over the medical care. They used to be over the sheriff. They now report to us. So that makes up the position counts. Most of our departments are either flat, reducing 1 or 2, adding 1 or 2. But I mean, all of that is what makes up the 6.3% increase in operations. We cover one that is called internal service funds. You, for many years, and I think it's been a very good decision going back to the 90s, have you're self-insured in several areas. Workers' comp, liability, but 2 of the biggies are where we're seeing increases in this year and in 2024. One is healthcare cost, the other is property insurance cost. We covered a lot of these with you earlier this fall in meetings we had with you, and y'all have been helpful in guiding us to how to propose going forward to meet these. In order to pay for those, there's just different variables. It varies year to year. We continue to do things on the health side that try to prevent or reduce the incidence of disease, and we will continue to, but it's an uphill battle. Costs go up. So that's part of the increase of $3.9 million next year. Property insurance, of course, is since the hurricanes. I see Ron here as your chairman. He's been great, and the jurors have in guiding us. How do we do that better and keep coverage? We've actually done more this year and will next year in being more active in the market at visiting with insurers and underwriters because that makes a difference. So we're being more aggressive in that area to keep that down. But y'all know this, the whole state is hurting with property insurance costs. We can manage it, though. It's just going to cost us a little more. Disaster recovery. This is the one that is where the big reduction is, but we still have $35 million budgeted. There's 2 categories of that. Parish buildings is the first one listed. Dean Kelly and his staff and facilities management has made great progress on our repairs. We think most, maybe not all, most will be finished at the end of 2024. We're budgeting $9.5 million for that. The cost of that out of pocket depends on our final settlements with insurance and then FEMA reimbursements. This is out of pocket cost, which those revenues may affect it one way or the other, but this is what we expect to spend. The other one, drainage lateral debris removal, that is mostly done, a multi-year project, extremely large. There is still remaining in the northwest part of the parish a project or 2 we can't get to yet, ironically, because it hasn't rained enough. The other part is we have to pay retainage to the contractor when he's finished. But for the most part, it's been done. It's way down, but this is what we're still going to expect to spend next year in disaster recovery. Before I go into capital, anything on the operational expense side or any of these I've covered? I don't want to rush through it too quickly. Okay. I think this is my favorite slide each year because this is where you're investing for the future. It's hard to do sometimes because there's pressures on current expenses, but the more we invest in our infrastructure and other areas, the more efficient we are with our annual operations. No surprise, parish government here in Calcasieu, transportation is the biggest category. Next year, we're budgeting $65.7 million. That would include, of course, new road construction, new bridge construction, or replacement. Your overlay program, which also includes some drainage, roadside drainage that goes with that. The other category that's really big, you can see major facilities at the bottom. That would be your buildings that we are funding through a combination of taxes, but also with bond funds. I'm going to cover some of these, not all. And then you have utilities and some other categories. Certainly can answer questions on those parks, but I want to hit the biggies. Let's talk about transportation a bit. Just a few project examples. First one I list, top left, Carlos Drive Extension. That would be phase 2. That one will extend what we've already done from Wright Road to Highway 27. City of Sulphur is sharing in that cost, which we appreciate. It's important because that's actually been annexed, but this has been on the books for a while. I think it's phase 2. If I'm wrong, John Bruce can correct me. Johnny Bro Road is over in Ward 7 near Vinton. Key road for economic development for that area, and we think there's going to be a lot of projects there, depending on how things play out with some of these federal monies. That road, it includes sewer and water as well. That's going to still take a little longer. We expect the road to be open, we think around in January of 2024. Long time coming, going to be a great addition to our road system. Ham Reed Road, South Lake Charles. That is phase 2 of the Ham Reed Road extension. We plan to start next year. If you look at the picture at the bottom left, that is part of phase 1, which is wrapping up. It's still got a little ways to go. That is a roundabout at Ham Reed Road and Elliott Road. If you look, kind of hard to see, if you look north toward, you see the St. John School on the left, that's Elliott Road, Ham Reed to your right. That phase is coming along well. Certainly can try to answer any questions you have on that. These are just 3 examples throughout the parish of new roads. On the bottom right, I listed several bridges that are due for repairs or replacement. Some are underway, some are going to start. A key part of that, we have so many bridges. I don't think most people know how many bridges we have to maintain. It's a lot. Very important. I want to talk about stormwater here. This picture was taken earlier this week, so that's what a detention pond looks like when it's not full of water anyway. That is amazing. You can see how big that is. This is our common media folks took this picture with their drone. It's looking north from McNeese Street in Lake Charles along Louisiana Avenue. You can see how big that is. It is mostly complete, I think. Alan told me, other than a few finishing touches, which is landscaping, some fencing, and maybe some other things, but we're very excited about that. So there may be a ribbon cutting in the near future on that one. Just another example in North Perkins Ferry Road area, Moss Bluff, on Little Indian Bayou. You've got a big drainage project planned there. And then it's something that you started a few years ago. You have one tonight on your agenda, actually. A lot of road overlays now include roadside drainage improvements as part of the same project. So we killed 2 birds with 1 stone. It's going to take several years, but greatly improve these little kind of just gnawing problems in some of the residential areas where the drainage needs to be fixed. So a lot of good news in the drainage capital budget in 2024. Let's switch to buildings. First one listed, Calcasieu Forensic Center. That's where the coroner operates out of. The picture on the top right, taken earlier this week, is of that complex, which is almost halfway complete. I know that's been a long time coming. I'm looking at Guy and Chris. Y'all have rightly been on us to say, get this done. We're finally getting it done. Very happy about it. The progress is good. We think by mid-2024 we'll be done with that one. And it's going to be a great facility. It also includes the crime lab that the sheriff operates, if you'll remember that.
Mr. Bean, I think
Yes.
Mr. Landry has.
I'm gonna tell you, look, I'm not ready to go yet,
Okay.
but we waited on that so long. When I do go, I'm gonna tell my wife I need to go get examined at that place. We've been waiting, how long? About 15, 20 years, 18 years for it? It's been a long time. I need an autopsy, that's what I'm gonna
I'm glad you clarified that, Mr. Landry.
Autopsy was, I couldn't get it, but autopsy, that's what
Well, if you
I'm
want it, that's where you'll be able to, be able to do that. One of the areas we tried, I'm very, we wish we could change it. Animal services, those folks have needed a new facility a long time. Y'all know that. Last year, you actually went out for bid. It was just way too expensive. We have been re-scoping that project. We are actually going to be calling for meetings with jurors in mid-December to update you on that. We feel very optimistic. We've got a plan that can work going forward. been a lot of work on that, and it could be out after the first of the year for bids if things can go the right way. So we feel optimistic about that. Burton Complex, the picture at the bottom. A lot of hurricane repairs going to be wrapping up. A lot of new work. You see a couple of examples in the picture. That's the sign that's new in 2023. It's really nice. That roof is new. Internal is going to be new electrical systems, new mechanical system, completely renovated or replaced HVAC system, and many others. It's going to take more than 2024, but that's going to be a big expenditure. And then the last one I list, the judicial complex, kind of like animal services, we've had to revisit it, rescope it. We will include in that same meeting a discussion on this with jurors in December. So more to come on that. We feel optimistic about that as well. I can't wait to show this next slide. I think you'll be more excited, Chris, about this than even the coroner's office. RV and camper spots at Burton Coliseum. That is a current picture. It is not finished, but I hesitate to say it because Jennifer's going to put this in the record, but I am told this will be completed in time for the livestock
show.
rodeo, district livestock rodeo in early 2024.
Yeah.
We're
Big
keeping
deal.
our fingers crossed. Modern features, expanded slots, long awaited. I know, I appreciate y'all's patience. Finally going to have that, and that's not a drawing, that's a real picture. So. Okay, let me stop for a second before I go into the last section of the presentation. Any questions on the capital side? Okay. I always like to end. A budget is a document that's got your priorities for next year based on your mission and goals and the dollars it takes to do that. That's 1 year, though. You always want to look at that in the context of the bigger picture of where we are. And the question I wanted to ask ourselves, what does a post-recovery future look like for the police jury? We're not post-recovery yet. We've got a long way to go. But every day that goes by, we spend more time on things that are looking ahead and not related to hurricane recovery, which is good. So I want to talk about recovery progress, but I kind of want to throw out what we believe is a critical area that police jurors and all of us need to be looking at as we go forward. Let's talk about the recovery progress, though. Well underway. If you go back, top right, I show this. September 2020 was the month after Hurricane Laura hit. So I took that and said, go forward up through today. Employment in our MSA, which is Calcasieu, it also includes Cameron, is up 16%. Employment count. We hadn't got back up to pre-COVID levels, but we're getting there. Nice increase in people employed here. Our taxable sales, that means not your tax revenue, but taxable sales for the whole parish, including cities, are up 33% between 2020, 2022 full year, and 2023 is looking good, certainly for the police juries. There's a lot of good indicators. And then I mentioned earlier these federal grants. If you look at all those programs I listed, that will go into infrastructure, housing, ultimately hazard mitigation, elevations in flood areas. That last one listed, Choice Neighborhood Grant, this was big. This was Calcasieu, and I say the Lake Charles Housing Authority was the recipient of the grant. A lot of our people in Human Services worked on this, though, for 2 years. One of 6 locations in the whole country that got this. It's $40 million in federal money to revitalize what they basically call mid-city Lake Charles over there, kind of near the mall. That will leverage another $200 million in public and private funds. This is major. Those are going to have an economic impact when all those get spent, and they're going to help people and businesses. So a lot of good news on the recovery. So I wanted to make sure we don't see we need to see the progress being made, and we'll continue. What I want to end with, though, is the other part beyond the recovery. And what I'd like to propose to you tonight is our focus must be efficiency. Now, that is a kind of a boring title, okay? But I want to tell you that when you get right down to it, it's very critical we focus on that now. What you see on the left is from your strategic plan, and Jessica pulled it out and highlighted the first one listed. Your priority areas, this goes back to your 2022 plan. Framework and processes for more efficient operations, more effective response, and maintain strong competence in local government. I believe how we maintain the public's trust is by doing the right things and doing them right. It's that simple. What do you do and how well do you do it? And we've got there's a couple of areas I want to focus on that is really challenging our ability to deliver the services you need done at the level you expect them to be done. And it's a tough story to tell, but it's one that needs to be told. I think we're optimistic, but the reality beyond hurricane recovery is we've got a couple of areas of challenges. One of them is ongoing. This recruitment and retention I mentioned earlier, it is not a one-off. I think this is going to be a challenge going forward, and so we can't just sit back and complain. We've got to attack it in many ways, and you started that. The competitive wages, it's always going to be a challenge, but we made great progress. If we stay the course on that, that's what it's going to take. The second item listed, though, is we need a new compensation structure. The plan we have has served us well for about 10 years. It needs to be more responsive to competitive positions that tend to crop up, and they may change. We're going to be working on that in 2024. We also have to communicate better pay and benefits. Everybody, of course, when you seek a job, what does it pay? We also have great benefits, and we try to communicate it well. We need to do better. And we understand a 26-year-old doesn't really care about a retirement plan. I'm not just saying that, although we have a great retirement system. There's a lot of other things we provide that we can compete and get these people, but we got to do a better job of telling them. And the last one, it won't apply to everybody, but we have to have a more formalized remote work program. We do it informally. We have lost potential candidates, and we've lost existing good employees for that sector of the workforce that this might apply to. The majority this won't apply to, y'all. We have a lot of field employees and all, but for the ones, professionals that have office settings, we need to catch up a bit. That's becoming more competitive. So that broad stroke recruitment and retention is something we're going to focus on and ask for continued support from the jury. Because at the end of the day, if we don't have the people and good people, we're not going to be able to do what people have come to expect from this jury, which I think is a very high level of excellence in service provision. Okay, the last part of my presentation, and we're getting close to the regular meeting. I'll hurry it up. This one's going to take a little time, but I call it processes related to special service districts and affiliated agencies. So what do I mean by that? Well, I want to show y'all what the real police jury org chart looks like. This is the one in your budget book, which you should have in front of you. It's on our website. If somebody says, can we look at your org chart? That's what we show them. People of Calcasieu elect jurors, and they appoint an administrator. We have all these departments. Okay. But that's not the real org chart. This is the real. So look, it's the same one on the left that I just showed you, but look at the right. These are almost invisible to most people, but it's something that challenges us every day. And let me zoom in closer. In addition to all of our departments, you have two areas I want to focus on, and we need to address these in 2024 and beyond more than we have. The one on the left, which I guess is a yellowish color, we call affiliated agencies. By state law, parishes have to provide certain facilities and services to all of those agencies that you are not over. A jail for the sheriff to run, office space for the district attorney, which has over 100 employees, A courthouse, court complex for the 14th JDC. We're talking about that as we speak. We've got to provide space for the clerk of court, registrar of voters, tax assessor, coroner. I didn't list them all. Health unit. Millions of dollars, thousands of man hours for that. We can't shuffle it and say we don't want to do it. We're saying we've got to do that better and try to make sure we're doing what we're supposed to, but with less strain on your workforce and sometimes your budget. The other category on the right are special service districts in blue. There's a myth, I don't know, I haven't heard it lately, but it used to be if somebody said, well, what's a special service district? Well, police jury appoints boards, and they run their own organization, and that's all we got to do. If that was ever true, it hadn't been true for about 30 years. The fact is, you've got 10 fire districts, 11 water districts, some of which you've had to take over because they were poorly run. 2 drainage districts, used to be 7, y'all have made that better. 7 rec districts or community center districts, a library system and others. I don't have enough room on the slide. Those together, the amount of services and work from our departments is enormous to try to tend to those things that a lot of people assume they do themselves. This includes administration, finance, human resources, insurance, IT, facility management. Why do I bring these 2 up? Because every hour, every dollar we spend on these is time we cannot spend on the things you are directly over and that you oversee. What we are saying is we've got to change direction on how we work with these and interact with them. And there's no one answer, but what we're doing is slowly but surely eroding our ability to handle the things well you need done. If you're going to say yes to your high priorities, you got to say no to some other things or do some other things different. And we want to come to you throughout 2024 with some proposals we're still working on to do that. Let me end. This is my last slide before the next steps. How do we do that? One of them, this is mostly affiliated agencies. All of our new buildings we're doing incorporate a lot of good designs that make them more efficient from energy, for safety, for hurricane resilience, and frankly, to where they don't need to be repaired as much and we get fewer complaints. I feel good about that. We've got to continue to do that. Switching to special service districts, we've got to eliminate the menu-based provisions. These are not, folks, these are not bad people. The structures, they basically go, well, we want you to do that, but no, we'll do that. It's killing us. We don't have the ability to do a menu-based service. We're going to need to go standardized in a way that's more efficient for us, but it still serves them well. Special districts have to be more accountable. Again, I'm verging on whining here, but I'm telling you, between purchasing, hiring, contracts, insurance, operations, they are killing us in time and effort and frustration because they're not doing what they're supposed to do on their end. Again, this is a structural problem, but it is bad enough to where we can't just continue to say, we'll handle it. Lastly, like you've done with drainage, I think we need to look at structures. What does that mean? It could mean any number of things. Maybe we need fewer districts in certain areas. Maybe we need to align them better. There's no one answer, but all these combined are critical looking ahead. Now, this has been kind of a downer slide. I get it. Let me end with a positive. What the future holds for us depends on what we hold for the future. Hard-working todays make high-winning tomorrows. I'm convinced there are solutions to get us where we need to be to provide the jurors with what you need us to do to fulfill your mission. But it's going to take a lot of work now. It'll be worth it in that future beyond recovery. And so we feel optimistic about that, just like we do, Mr. Chairman, for this budget we've presented to you, which I'll wrap up and say that from here, tonight is the 16th, between now and December 14th, a public comment period. You have a hearing just before your police jury meeting on November 30th. And then December 14th is when you need to take action to adopt a budget for 2024. And with that, I appreciate the opportunity to present this to your committee. And if there's any questions, I'll take them. If not, we'll wait to hear from y'all looking forward.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Beam, for your report. I have one question or one observation as far as what you were talking about relative to the special service districts.
Yes.
You say that you guys are working on a plan that you're going to present to us later on where we need to move to in reference to that.
Yes, and it's not like one thing. There's different parts depending on what you're talking about where we can attack this like you do most problems. It's several different things, and I think we'll make it more organized. But yes, and it's going to take us a little while.
Okay.
But I think early in 2024, we'll be able to start the dialogue with you sooner rather than later.
Mr. Barris.
Thank you. Whatever you call this committee, may I be the first to offer my services to chair it.
That's okay.
I'll
Just talk
run-
to the next
I'll
president.
run down the mountain screaming with it. Come on. Thank you.
Mr. Angelpine.
The presentation was very good. Can we get a copy of the presentation? Very good presentation, Mr. Beam.
Thank you, Mr. Angelpine. If I could, Mr. Barty, I'm glad you asked about that. This should be tonight on the website, both the presentation slides that you're asking about and the video, maybe by tomorrow, will be loaded on there well. And the whole budget, every page you got in front of you will be on a PDF version online, so for the public to look at.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Brame and a second by Mr. Abshire to receive the budget report. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Beam, and thank you, staff, for putting that together for us. Let's move to 1A, Ward 2, 28,000.
Move on 1A.
416, Ward 2, Fire Protection District Number 1, for costs associated with the purchase of a generator for the Manchester Fire Station. We have a motion by Mr. Stelly and a second by Mr. Barris. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. 1B, Ward 3, $1
Move on
million
1B. Second.
Waterworks District Number 12 of Ward 3 District for future water line infrastructure improvements in District 12, Sub-District Number E. Boy, that's a great deal, and I want to thank you for that. We have a motion by Mr. Landry and a second by Mr. Brame. You guys been working on that for a while, almost as long as your
2008. 22 years.
all right. Any discussion? All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries. Any other matters requiring discussion and/or action?
Move to adjourn.